In this video, I am looking at a Lancia Gamma, a really rusty one, and I mean really rusty. And yes, there really are two Lancia Gammas here in my friend's field. It's a truly remarkable sight. So we'll jump straight into the history of the Lancia Gamma. It was pretty much the final Lancia design as an independent company, although actually by the time it was developed, Fiat had actually taken a controlling stake. 1969, Lancia had just simply run out of money, had colossal debts, but nonetheless this car was already being kind of developed, so they persevered and it evolved a bit with some input from Fiat, but it is still very much a Lancia product. The specification is well, it's odd. The styling is odd. The styling is by Pininfarina, although he tried to distance himself from the Berliner and tried to focus on the prettier coupe. They didn't make very many of them. It was about just under 15,000 Berliners like this, and about 6,000 of the coupes. So in commercial terms, it was an absolute disaster. But it's still one of those cars, if you ask motoring journalists to name a car they would like to drive, if maybe not own, I think this is one of them. But this example, yeah, the tin worm has been knocking on the door of this one. And there's some really interesting features. If we start with this boot lid, it's got a double hinge on it, so it tilts right up out of the way. I like the way this one seems to have now rusted into position. That's quite good. Let's try and pull it from the middle. But while we're here, you'll note there's glass in the tailgate. Why is there glass in the tailgate? That's because there's an extra window here, so you can see through to the interior. There's the interior mirror, and we can also see yet more rust. But there we go. We'll get the boot lid to shut. It's quite a clever hinging arrangement. Almost works. This one dates from, I would guess, 1982, possibly 1983 on a Y plate. This is our year indicator in the UK, pre-2001. Lancia badge here, World Endurance Championship there. But yes, in many ways, just a magnificent white elephant. And one of the problems was the engine. And we'll have a look under the bonnet of this example. Oh, lift it up. There is the engine. It's a flat 4. It's a 2.5 litre flat 4 engine. Excuse me while a Renault 11 drives around. A few of us have met up at my friend's field for a socially distanced weekend of fun. And yeah, flat 4 engine was not really the way to go. It made a lovely noise at higher revs, but at lower revs it sounded lumpy and flat 4-ish, in much the way flat 4s normally do. But yeah, look at the crust on this example. If we take a look inside through the rusty door, I mean, even the roof has gone rusty in the middle of the panel, and the Saint Gobain glass. Have to be a bit careful. The hinge is dropping because I suspect because this car is so rotten. We got the interior, which isn't the finest interior, but I think being from the early 80s, this is a Series 2 model. So it's got a few improvements to the dashboard. The gear knob looks a lot nicer than the Series 1, which we'll have a look at in a moment. But yeah, this example, not in great shape, but really nice comfortable seats, and apparently a very interesting driving experience. But like so many, this one is dead, but it will live on in parts, because I mean, this one belongs to my friend Chris, but he is a member of the Lancia Gamma consortium, and the consortium also own this car. They will be stripping every good spare part off it. I imagine there's considerable stuff. I imagine the headlamps are quite difficult, right-hand drive specific, of course, to find as well. So there's a lot that can be done, and the Gamma Consortium does an awful lot of very good work on these cars. We'll go and have a look down the other side just to really take in the rust, and it has gone pretty much everywhere they go. I mean, look at that. That's just the paint is lifting off. Really extraordinarily crusty. And that was, you know, Lancia didn't use very good steel in the 1970s, along with Fiat. part of that notorious deal with Russia, steel for the larder. So they ended up with some very poor quality steel. So this is the Series 1, the slightly earlier car. Not a lot to give it away. At the front end we've got a black grille. It's about the only difference on the outside. This one, I must speak of wipers, I think has a slight issue going on. That looks more like a Lancia Beta or Delta wiper. It doesn't look quite big enough for this car. It has got a very fetching Webasto roof. But if we have a look under the bonnet, first of all, again, sadly this one doesn't run, but it has got the two struts. These are gas struts. You lift up and they lock, and then you lift again and they let the engine come down. Beautiful details in here, and this is from very early in the UK production. The sales started here in 1978, and this is a 78 or 79 on a T plate, as you can see here. But yeah, extraordinary car. But one of the big weaknesses of this flat 4 engine lies under here, and it's this power steering pump. We've got a belt driven camshaft to operate the valves, but it comes all the way through to drive the pump on the back here by belt. And one of the issues was harsh use of the steering when cold or when parking could knock the engine timing out. Pistons meet valves, your engine's dead. Lots of other foibles, because this was an engine bespoke to this car. It was developed from an earlier Lancia flat 4 engine, and that was used in the Flavia and the later 2000 Berliner, and presumably the coupe versions as well. But yeah, it was just a troubled engine, shall we say. We've got a bladder for the screen wash here. That was quite normal back in the day. We've also got little servo motors to adjust the headlamp leveling, which is something I'd not seen on a car of this era, late 70s. I think that's quite impressive. Yeah, it doesn't look particularly joyous as an engine to work on. Getting this spark plug out underneath the power steering pump must be quite interesting. But yeah, a flawed, is somewhat magnificent vehicle. We shall drop the bonnet, which we'll drop, as I said, we lift up first, and then we can lower, and down we go. And we now step aboard and have a look inside. And I didn't quite get the steering wheel level when I was in it earlier, typical me, but there we go. Look at the seats, and this Series 1 example, absolutely beautiful sort of blue material. It's carried over into the door trims. This is how you get out, the door handle release, a nice sort of grip to pull the door shut, the Lancia on the kick strip. And if we jump in, we've got some quite interesting dials. These cars were criticised when new. You'll have to forgive the hard shadows, it's sort of shooting in the evening here. But I actually quite like this dashboard. I think it's fairly modern for a 70s design. Some lovely buttons going on here. And oh, that sounds like a vacuum. So it's a vacuum controlled heating system. That must be exciting. And I presume that's the heater fan switch there. Push buttons here. Oh, listen to that. That is a joyous noise. I can't see any illuminated warning for that, but it does work. Push button for the screen wash as well, I assume. Or I wonder what that one is. It can't be wipers on their own, I wouldn't have thought, because I would have thought one of these stalks was wipers. Possibly this one. Let's try the wipers. I mean, oh, wow, that's a noisy old oh, and that's the cooling fan on the switch down here. That is noisy. Stop. Haha, there we go. So oh, here comes a Renault 11 again. Wipers. Oh yeah, the screen wash is going all the way over the roof. I wonder what that button there is then, because there isn't a rear wiper. I don't quite understand that one, but we can just about see the battery is struggling a bit. There is actually overlap. I think they would work in a good way with no overlap. Whether that's true when you've got the correct wiper arms on, I'm not sure. We can't start the engine because the battery is absolutely kippered, as you can see with the slow wiper action going on there, and it isn't running very well. This car needs work. Here is the earlier gear lever. and yeah, it's quite a clunky gear change. I'm just going to put the handbrake on. So that's first, second, third, fourth, and yeah, you can sort of see this ball down here. It's a very clunky gate going on. Lovely quartzo clock down here, quite liking that. And yeah, stalks as I've discussed, so indicators over this side, and I think that's probably lights variously. Choke, manual choke, bonnet releases down here. There's a little cubby bin there, and the same on the passenger side. Glove box is that? Oh, it's underneath, I see. Right, so you release there and then lift there, and you have to do that with two hands, it seems. How impractical is that? Maybe it popped up at a future point. Thanks to the Gamma Consortium, they gave me a bit of information, far too much information. I can't really repeat any of this. There is too much, but yeah, the club celebrating its 30th anniversary last year, and how many Gammas? This is their breakdown. And so the 2500 Coupe, 3,500. So a pretty rare car, but look at that. All production only totals 21,289. That is not good times. So yeah, a bit of a failure. And you can see we've got blanking plugs where the window winders would presumably have been on some models. This has electric windows all round. It has electric mirrors. And yeah, if we look rearward now, you can see the view out through that secret hatch beneath the main rear window. It does help. It just gives you a bit more rearward visibility. But I think we should probably go and have a look in the rear, so let's go and do that now. And it's great news here in the back. It's absolutely lovely. There's loads of leg room, and I read reports that these cars were a bit tight. That seat is a little further forward than I find comfortable, but not much. And again, you've got pockets here for documents. It's all good. We've got the electric window switches there. Again, we've got the blanking plugs as well, it seems. But yeah, really comfortable seat. I really like it. The headroom is a bit tight, not helped by this car having a Webasto roof fitted. So that's not the best, but I've got little sunscreens I can hook up to protect myself. You know, that fierce Italian sunlight. I've got the lovely center armrest here. It's all good times. I really like it. Someone's fitted rear belts as well. It's a nice touch. There's a button there for a light. I don't know which light. Maybe it turns this one on. I don't know, but that's pretty in itself. It's, yeah, just one of those cars. It was probably the end of cars like this being developed. The Citroen CX, the Lancia Gamma, the Rover SD1 to a lesser extent, but maybe the P6 that preceded it. Cars where engineering was very much the thing. Unfortunately, as is so often the case where engineering leads, it's the little things that let you down, and it's probably not enough testing with these cars. I imagine they were running out of money and just desperate to get the things into production. But lots of reliability issues meant the sales figures were, you know, disappointing. And ultimately, these cars lingered on. I think production stopped in '84, but some were still sold in 1986. I think 2 were sold in the UK in 1986, according to that Gamma Consortium paperwork. And that's not good times. At that point, the Lancia Thema came in, which was one of the, was it Club 4 cars, shared with the Fiat Croma Saab 9000 and the Alfa Romeo 164. So kind of a joint development, and a far better car. I think the Thema sold in much better numbers. But yeah, it's a fascinating sort of avenue, the end of proper engineering-led cars. And when things after this just started getting more boring, I think. I must demonstrate the boot lid again, just because I find that absolutely delicious. It's just lovely double hinging, and it means it's quite compact in the way it folds down. So it's not robbing you too much of boot space. That's absolutely lovely. There you go. That was the Lancia Gamma. I'm pleased to have a slightly less rusty one to show you, as well as this terminally rotten example. I do hope you've enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Farewell.